liver pate, corn cakes, kasha, and cabbage greens.
Fair play.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
And let's go.
Hi John, how are you?
I'm well.
So, musician, artist, broadcaster, writer, how would you best describe yourself?
For non-profit making hats in the 21st century. Yes. All of those.
Is there one particular discipline that stands out above the others for you?
I trained as a painter. I wear the artistic hat for my daily bread, but the music is probably closest to my heart.
So, who taught you to paint?
My father initially, and then I was lucky enough to study with Jonathon.
Your father, Francis
Coudrille,
right.
Francis Coudrille of Hank the Cowboy fame.
That's right, yeah. So I did a bit of research on him. Did he get you into broadcasting?
No, he absolutely didn't. He completely refused to do any leg up. Nepotism was against his political philosophy.
Yeah.
Michael Kattie, who was the then curator of the very fine Passmore Edwards Gallery, as was at Newlyn, gave me my first introduction to Donald Kerr, who was BBC Southwest.
Okay. And from then on, where did you go from BBC Plymouth and...
From BBC Plymouth, my dear, I made the great leap to Westwood, which was the commercial station of the time, run by Lulu and Hack. It was a very, very happy station indeed.
And where was that based to?
Oh, that was Plymouth,
That was
Dairies
Plymouth
Cross,
as well.
yes.
Oh, right. Okay, so from your time in Plymouth, and on my research here, so you've got a bit of time spent in Soho, playing in strip clubs. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and about the clubs and some of the characters?
About clubs and the characters. Well, on the surface of it, it sounds like a lot of fun and a lot of glamour. It was all about money, and the clubs were run basically to fleece lonely men of their savings. That's really what it was about. My function was to play music so that they didn't leave between the strippers, just something or other. But I was given a hauling over the coals by the proprietor of one of the clubs that I played mostly in for talking to the customers. He said, "Listen, Jonathon, while you're talking to the customers, they ain't talking to the hostesses, and that's costing me money, right? Do we understand one another?" We did understand one another. When I finally left, I offered to throw him down the stairs, but that was a few months later.
Excellent, excellent. Then from Soho, where did you go then when you gave up working in Soho?
I don't know that I exactly gave it up. Well, I'd had several things on the boil all at the same time. I'd left Cornwall to follow the broadcasting side of things, because I was writing for and performing as a broadcasting political satirist on the Old Today programme, which was then run by Jack D'Amanio.
That's right.
And I went on from there to Southern Television, where I expanded a little bit and became musical director on the Get This series, and moved more and more into composition. I went to Rome to work on some movie music, and I also was, should we say, active on the rock underground at that time, which is...
So your first show, what was the name of your first show? It says here that you were given your own show.
That was with Westwood. Embarrassingly, it was called Young Tomorrow.
Could you tell us a little bit about
it? There's very little to say about it. It wasn't repeated. It was the idea was that a bunch of youngers and worsers were confronted by three elders and betters. We had the vice chairman of the Methodist Conference. We had a bishop. We had an admiral. And these people were supposed to be pillars of the establishment, and we were supposed to tear into them with our savage and revolutionary views. But it turned out that I think the bishop had been to school with the father of my red-hottest, most bearded firebrand, and they started to exchange pleasant tales of happy school days. And I also had a wonderful Scotsman with a most Oh, he was a Glaswegian accent like that. It was absolutely, he'd been raring to tear into these people because he had a lot of very serious grievances. And he didn't open his mouth during the entire programme. This was fairly typical of the entire series. We just never managed to get sufficiently savage youngsters or sufficiently pompous elders and betters. They just all got on like a house on fire, so the confrontational idea of the programme did not succeed greatly. So young tomorrow is now young yesterday.
Well, what year was that?
Ooh, 1960, let me think, I would have been 20 and 65, so about 1963, something like that.
Excellent. Don't mind if we go back in time a little bit.
You can do that if you like. I just mentioned that one of the joys of Westwood was I met dear Cyril Tawney there, who you doubtless remember was known as the father of the folk revival in this country, and he introduced me to everybody on the folk scene, which hadn't interested me previously, but I spent some time in that area as a result of that meeting.
My research tells me you won an award for a folk song. Was it Folk Song of the Year? I've got here.
No. I wrote a children's book, which was Children's Book of the Year. That was after my Grand Guignol car smash. But I was melody maker, top rock folk soloist, yes.
Did that come with a little award, or was it just...
They gave me a copy of a guitar I already had, quite a lot of cash, and a very, very lovely scroll that had been lettered by hand by a beautiful French girl who was the organizer of the festival, and the pleasure of some of her company, shall we say.
So you come from the Lizard.
Indeed I do.
Could you tell us a little bit about where you came from?
About the Lizard?
Well, just about where you came from. And
well, I got deleted from Wikipedia for people commenting too much about the fact that I was conceived in the little cottage next door to Llandywednac Church, now called Trewydden. At the time it was called Why Worry.
Father Francis.
And
Mother?
Mother Joanna, very, very beautiful woman, my mother. She was a tennis player, a gifted raconteur, a wonderful swimmer. She used to swim nude below the house at the Lizard, and hence the legends of mermaids.
Oh, right, that's where they come from. Yeah. I see a lot of mermaids crop up in your work, I've noticed.
No, in my father's work.
In your father's work. Okay. Well, if we move on to music now, you play a lot of instruments. Can you tell us what
You tell me why. If you grow up the Lizard, boy, you got to learn to do everything for yourself, because there ain't nobody else there to do it for you. My first instrument would have been trumpet. We were on the road at the time, because as you know, my father was a conscientious objector, and Why Worry was a tied cottage, so we were on the road. And absolutely SH1T poor, and he had to do absolutely anything he could, including cobbling bicycles together from rubbish dump to rubbish dump as we travelled to various villages. What was the question?
What instrument? Sorry, Jonathan, yes.
Right. He worked his way up from Punch and Judy to the end of the pier at Saltburn, where the pit orchestra included a man called Ernie Payne, who played the trumpet like an angel. And I went along, I was a preschool child, to band call with my dad, and I sat in the stalls there and listened to him warm up on the trumpet on Fritz Kreisler's Schöne Rosmarin. Diddly-dum, da-da, ba-diddly-dum, diddly-dum. It's not a doddle on the trumpet, but he played it with, I thought to myself, I've got to have a trumpet, I've got to play the trumpet. And Stan Stennett was top of the bill there. In those days, he was running his own aeroplane, was a very, very big star, and he said to my father, I hear your boy wants a trumpet. I would sell him mine, only I want to know how much money he's got in the world. And my father said, well, I think he's got £2 in his piggy bank. And Stan said, right, well, he said, I would give it to him because he's keen, but if he give me all the money he's got in his piggy bank, all the money he's got in the world, he'll never part with that trumpet. Very, very wise. I never did, despite the fact that when I got back to the caravan with it and blew it, my mother said, that's very nice, dear, let me look after that for you, and put it on a very, very high shelf. And I was unable to get it down off that shelf for quite a few years, but my father made me a little guitar as a consolation prize, so that was my first instrument.
Right, what, the guitar? The guitar would have been...
Yes.
Can you remember what was the first tune that you learned to play? Would you be able to remember that?
Let me think. Probably Alexander's Ragtime Band.
I wouldn't have a clue. Could you hum a little?
Oh my honey, let me take you to Alexander's ragtime, dragtime, something, something, something in the land. Come on in here, Alexander's Ragtime Band. Am I going to do this on my own? We've got singers sitting over there. May I ask you to just reach me that glass of splendid Penzance tap water? Thank you. Good help.
My research tells me that you principally play jazz, Russian and gypsy music.
Principally, yeah, I suppose. That's the sort of thing that my current trio would produce, yes.
Is that the
Gwelhelen Goth, yes. We've sort of dropped the goth because, as you know what it means in Cornish, but it tended to suggest that we wore eyeliner and black fingernails. And
could you tell us a little bit about your painting?
I prefer not to tell people about the painting because the painting speaks for itself. I have written polemics about the fashion. Shut up! I've written polemics about the fashion for artists' statements, and I actually feel that the painting should be the statement, and that if people want to interpret what is there, then they should be free to do so.
We'll leave the painting there, because I think that's covered quite
yeah, I think it is covered extensively elsewhere. There's a big interview with John Nettles, which they did for Channel 4 Arts, and we can
I watched it last night when I was researching
there we
this,
go, and that says pretty well everything that needs to be said about the painting.
Okay. Well, they say every cloud has a silver lining. And maybe not. In 1972, you were involved in a car accident.
Yes.
That left you crippled with spinal.
Yeah,
Could you tell us
I was
a little bit about that and your
about
recovery?
that. Well, it felt like this. I was going down the Holloway Road and I stopped for a drunk on a level zebra crossing because it was Christmas Eve, and it felt like that because the lorry behind me didn't stop. I had just overtaken him, so he probably did not expect me to stop, let us say, but I wasn't given the option. So it threw my American V8 30 feet. The engine came off the mountings and came back in, and my head nearly came off and ended up on the back seat. So it was quite an interesting experience.
But during your recovery,
yes,
your career took a different path.
Well,
could you tell us a little
yes,
bit about
I
that?
can. I was laid up and I was severely depressed, and my dear then wife said, "Why don't you draw something?" Because because of the broadcasting career, I'd completely neglected the visual arts. And I started to draw, really to stop from going crazy, and I started to draw animals, which had not been something that I'd done before. And I thought, good heavens, what fun it would be to make them the shape of the letter that they begin with. So I made a B-shaped bear, and an A-shaped aardvark with an astrolabe, and let me think, what's the last letter? Not the zebras, it wasn't the zebras. Urchins, some little, what's the right word for those things? You squash them on the road, but I've forgotten what you call them. Hedgehogs.
Hedgehogs,
that's right. Under an umbrella. And I had done these 3 little drawings, and somebody visiting said, well, that would make a wonderful book. Why don't you do the whole 26? And I did, and by the time I was able to hobble about on sticks, I thought, right, well, book would be great fun. What do you do to get published? I thought, call a taxi, get into the taxi, say to the taxi driver, take me to where the publishers are. And he said, oh, well, that'd be Bedford Square, Squire, that would be Bedford Square. So we went to Bedford Square, and he said, any particular publisher? I said, well, I don't know, really, just go round the square and we'll have a look. And the first one we noticed was Jonathon Cape, but there wasn't a place to stop, so we went round again. And Frederick Warne, there was a space outside, and I thought, well, Frederick Warne did the Beatrix Potter things and in those days, the Oislager Auto Library. I thought, yeah, this will be the one. And so I went to Frederick Warne, and I said, look, I've done a book. And they said, come in. And I was introduced to the editorial director. And a fortnight later, I had a contract, and everything went as smoothly as that. You try and get a book published today that way.
It's an excellent book. I remember it as a child.
Thank you very much.
I remember it as a child with the Puffin collections. Angry Alphabet, was that the one?
It wasn't Angry Alphabet, that was somebody else. Mine was A Beastly Collection.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Sorry, why have I got Angry
Quite
Alphabet?
all right, shoot your researcher.
Yes, I shall do. Anyway, so from there you wrote another book, which went on to be a bestseller.
The next one was Farmer Fisher. I'm going to put my hat back on because of that there rain. I had a little boy who was just coming up to school age, and I'd actually written Beastly Collection as in book form, with the idea being, first of all, to stop me from going crazy, but when the idea of it becoming a book came about was so that parents would have something to look at and something to read. I hadn't done the text when I went to the publisher, just the pictures. And they said it needed some text. So I thought I would make the text interesting and usable for grown-ups. For my little boy, however, I wrote the simplest song I could possibly imagine, which was, Farmer Fisher had a fine fat truck, and you couldn't see the colour for the farmyard muck. In the front was a rabbit and a chicken and a duck, all on the way to market. And in the back was sows. Sows? Thank you. Cows. The farmyard cats. Hogs, dogs, the farmyard rats. Hares, mares, a pound of pears. Billy goats in hairy coats, and a horse, of course, and a ton of turnips on the way to market. And as far as that's concerned, it was history, which was rather good. It became Children's Book of the Year in 1976, which was terrific.
The first book in Britain to have come
with
with
a
record,
yes.
yeah. So
beautiful shiny vinyl with a yellow label in the middle.
So was that the idea that you would always write a book and have it set to music, or would the music just?
Yeah, the idea was to do a whole series of them. The second one I did was Farmer Fisher's Russian Christmas, which was great fun, and which was selling in absolutely brilliantly until the returns started coming in, because the first one had sold so well and got the award. The second one, all the bookshops ordered it, and then they started sending it back, because nobody had actually thought to open one and have a look inside and see if it was readable as a book, and it wasn't. Whoever had been minding the printing press had fallen asleep, and pages 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 were all backed up like that. So all the heads were missing off the odd numbers and all the feet missing off the even numbers. And the printers said, well, we'll reprint at our own cost, which is wonderful, but have you ever tried to sell a Christmas book on January the 4th when the bookshops have already sent it back? No, it killed the little publisher, which was rather sad. And that was basically, for me, that was the end of children's books as such. I did Vulgar Frog in the 80s, and I illustrated a few things. I illustrated the sequel to Wind in the Willows. Made a bad career move there. I was offered a royalty or a flat fee, and I thought, well, come on, sequel to Wind in the Willows, that's not going to go terribly far. Everybody loves the original, but sequels, it'd be like tribute bands. Nobody would be interested.
Godfather
of course, it sold millions,
Superman
didn't it? Yes. So, but by then I'd moved further into music, and I started touring with the Kasatka Cossacks and working with the Alexeyev Orchestra, and traveling the world as a musician.
Well, that's the past, I think. What's the future hold then for Jonathon?
Don't know yet.
Any plans? Anything on the horizon?
Somebody said very, very pompously to me not long ago, when I asked him, what are you doing? What are you going to do? He said, I only talk about the things I have done. I never talk about the things I'm going to do. And that's almost pompous enough to claim. I think it's a wonderful beginning. I certainly have plans. I'm doing a lot with the poetry at the moment. we had tremendous fun doing a benefit for the Acorn as the end of the literary festival, second literary festival. We did it the first year in a tent in the rain, and did it this year with a greatly expanded cast as an improvised opera. And that was tremendous fun to do, and I'm hoping to go more in that direction.
As far as I know, you're not best known for being a poet. Would you give us a quick verse of one of your poems? Could you?
I would if I'd got any with me, but I have a memory like a sieve, and I don't know if I've got any in there. Let me have a look. Can you make a buzzing noise, please? Deep breath. Buzz. Buzz.
Where's that lobster?
Yes.
Where's that lobster?
Two flies devoid of delicacy, decency, or tact performed upon my luncheon plate the procreative act. Quite without contrition, they refused to call a halt, intent upon coition, though I peppered them with salt. At length, the she-fly wearied of his passionate attack and shook her pint-sized partner like a raincoat from her back. He lay distraite, diverted, diddly-dee, and hardly spent, to be pulled along inverted like a clown when off she went. Her trampled wings she mastered, looking flustered as she fled, and dropped the little bastard in the mustard on his head.
Okay. Yeah, I think